That was my next question. Now we've got reports the Japanese are getting angry. We have no homes. The radiation is higher than what you said. How is, well, number one, we're now 6 days into this. The media is saying the point of no return may have been reached. They may fully melt down. A lot of experts believe that meltdowns have already occurred. They're covering up the real levels in those two states, in and around Fukushima, and the 6 stricken reactors, 4 that have blown up or are on fire. How do you statistically see this generally unfolding? How long could the disaster go on? Weeks, months? How much?
Yeah. This is a very good question. There are 3 possibilities, and 2 of them are very bad. And the one that I think is likely to happen is one of those. Now, there's about 1,500 to 1,700 tons of mixed uranium and plutonium fuel there. My feeling is that the radiation levels will get so high that those guys they will either die or they will have to get out. And probably, they're not really doing an awful lot of good. From what I see, this is desperate nonsense. They may as well try and piss on those things as in terms of trying to do anything, because there's huge amounts of plutonium and uranium there, getting hotter and hotter and hotter. So 2 things can happen. The first thing is that they can do the sort of China syndrome meltdown, and that's probably the best thing that can happen. So they will just melt down and fall through the ground, and a lot of bad smoke will come out, but it will mainly be confined to the North Island of Japan. So a lot of stuff will come across the United States, but it won't be like huge amounts. But I tell you what, the main problem is that if the plutonium, which is much more critically able to produce neutrons and explode in what's called prompt fission, if that gets together in the bottom of a tank and explodes like in the Kishim accident, then it will be absolute nightmare for the globe. Never mind about Japan. That stuff will go up into the atmosphere and it will get into the sea and it will float everywhere, and it's a really serious accident. But, I mean, much worse than Chernobyl. The amount of uranium that came out of Chernobyl in the explosion was 50 tons. We've got 1,700 tons, I'm told, in the spent fuel, and about 600 tons in the reactors themselves. And if they can't keep that stuff in, and it does go up in a nuclear explosion, it will be spread all over the planet, and that will be unimaginable, the consequences of that, unimaginable. So those are the 2 things. First of all, let's hope that it melts through the bottom of everything and goes into the ground and disappears downwards. At least that will produce an area that they can contain, so they can throw a fence around it, and they can call the North Island of Japan mankind's folly. And the sea will become contaminated, and the fish will be contaminated, and people can't eat them, and all the rest of it. The second one is the explosion, which we just keep our fingers crossed and hope to God doesn't happen. And the third one is they could just keep pouring water on it forever, and radionuclides will slowly leak out all over the place. But I don't think that's going to be possible myself. But I mean, I may be wrong. The trouble is, we're in science fiction territory here. Nobody has ever actually been able to nobody's ever done this before. This hasn't happened before anywhere. So we don't know what's going to happen. The calculations say that there'll be a China syndrome, like that famous film. But we don't have any Hollywood actors to come and protect us as they did in the film. And in fact, the USS Ronald Reagan is, I think, steaming away as fast as it can go since it started to pick up radioactivity on it.
Well, Doctor, continuing along this line, fully understanding where this is going, I don't think that this is something the nuclear industry is going to be able to spin. This is a bridge too far, and the fact that they've been trying to cover it up, I think, is going to be the death knell to their credibility, because we didn't have the internet during Chernobyl or during 3 Mile Island. A comment on that.
Yeah, and we didn't have Geiger counters either. After Chernobyl, so many Geiger counters were being sold on eBay that an awful lot of them are out there now. I mean, when Chernobyl was happening, I was here in Wales, and we got the radiation from Chernobyl came here. I couldn't afford a Geiger counter, and nobody else had one. But now everybody's got one, and I've got a laboratory here with several, and the internet is there, and they're giving minute-by-minute readings from all sorts of sites all over the United States and Japan and everywhere else. So yeah, they can't spin it on that level. But I tell you how they will spin it. What they'll do is they'll say that the doses are very much too low, just like I said before. So that the number of millisieverts involved when it gets to America will be very low. And then when you do get an increase in cancer 5 years later, there'll be a big increase in cancer. They'll say, oh well, it's because of there's an aging population, or they'll find some reason to say that the cancer has nothing to do with the exposure, just like they did with Chernobyl, where they were saying that cancer was caused by radiophobia. I mean, I was at a conference in Kiev in 2000, by drinking vodka. So they will certainly have a go at spinning it. You can be sure of that.
They will certainly have a go at it. You can be assured of that. I mean, look, I have children, 3 of them, and I am in the realm of reality. That's why I told people Friday it was worse than they were saying. Saturday, Monday, the fuel rods hiding in plain view. It's in mainstream news that 600,000 fuel rods are there, that hundreds of thousands were stored on top of plants that blew sky high. And then they're not releasing the radiation information. The media made fun of people saying that radiation would come here Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Now they admit it's coming here, but the usual canned response of, oh, it's no big deal. You know, it's 3 or 4 times what you get from the sun. No, it's going into your body, ladies and gentlemen, and it's affecting your lifetime dose. We already get cancer because of the natural amount of radiation out there. And I've seen the studies of mummies in China, not just in Egypt. And cancer is unknown. These are real numbers. Cancer was almost unknown 150 years ago. And in the last 50 years, listen, I've got friends that work in the office whose girlfriends have died of cancer or dying. Kids dying at school. I mean, it's an epidemic, and elitist children are dying. And clearly, a big part of this is the dioxins and the mercury in the vaccines. But the big driver from the studies I've seen is the radiation, the runoff from the plants, the runoff from the weapons plants, and they're killing us. And look at America, the biggest nuke site in the world after Russia, highest cancer rates. Then they lie and say, well, we're living longer. Actually, the U.S. Population numbers have gone down, and they don't tell you that fetal birth rates, babies dying, that number's gone down. On average, about 30% of children 100 years ago would die from complications. But if you made it past 5, if you look at the numbers and average those out, the average person lived past 85. Now with men, it's about 73. Women, it's 76. And then they have all these advanced technologies to keep you alive for 20 years when you start getting sick at 55, but it's unnatural. We'll talk about that with Dr. Busby, website greenaudit.org, an amazing individual. All of his information integrates with my own research and the countless physicists, doctors we've interviewed. I believe, and I know this is a eugenics operation by design. We'll be right back.